I would like to now welcome to the stage Miss Catherine Watt. This is her second time here with us, as a matter of fact. And she has come all the way from somewhere far north, an hour and 20 minutes travel. She is actually serving in an elected position on the City Council of the City of Clemson, believe it or not. She is also known as the Senior Director of Policy Analysis for Penn State University. That's huge. I couldn't get into Penn State. And she's in charge of it, or at least in charge of the policies. So anyhow, thank you. Please welcome Catherine Watt to the stage. Make sure you get in nice and deep to that microphone.
There we go. Good morning, everybody. And I would like to thank Miss...
Can you hear her? How's the volume?
I have never been accused of being soft-spoken. I would like to thank Miss Ann for making the case of why I'm here, actually. As a city council person, I am here to talk about the very boring offices of local elections, especially nonpartisan ones, and hoping that you and your friends and your kids and your grandkids will start to run for these positions. Not everybody can be sexy like Bill and Jamil and run for state office. These are what you guys see, what Ms. Ann was talking about. These are meetings where we do very boring things. Nobody is entrusting me with your civil rights. Nobody is entrusting me with Supreme Court justices, which is sort of a shame. But but what Ms. Ann also said that is very true is it's about representation at that level. And so I just want to come to you for just a few minutes and talk about serving on city council or county council and the other offices that go along with that, things like the Planning Commission, a tax commission, that's the Accommodations Tax Commission, Parks and Rec. Parks and Rec, for example, in Clemson, we just approved $4.6 million in improvements because we have so many kids who need a place to be. And we have so many families who rely on the services that Parks and Rec offer. But Parks and Rec also offers senior bingo. They offer senior citizen yoga. And so Parks and Rec, to me, is one of the centerpieces of our communities. I don't know about you, but I got to play. I grew up in Walhalla, South Carolina, and I got to play about every sport there was, at least for 1 year, because of Parks and Rec. I learned I don't like soccer. I learned I did like basketball. And I really wanted to play football, but they wouldn't let girls do that back then. But that's it. And when you look at these seats that are still open on your agenda, and thank you for putting this up here, because I also want to talk partisanly for a minute. This is where the Republican Party puts its grassroots people. The Koch people are no longer funding federal elections. They're funding school board elections. They're funding city council elections. Talk to the people in Charleston. I'm sure you've been hanging out with the Charleston crowd some, what they're seeing. And so these elections really do set the foundation for where we head as a state. One of the things, and I should have looked it up, but I didn't, if Greenwood has a hate crimes law. We have a hate crimes law in Clemson, but we can't get one passed in Columbia. So that is the foundation where we can talk about the municipal work that gets done every day. And then hopefully then we send Jamil and Bill to the State House and they continue the work that we're doing locally. So I'm here to advocate for that. I'm also here to talk about the importance of diverse voices. I don't know about you, but I didn't grow up seeing people like me even on Walhalla City Council, I assure you. And this is one of the places where your voices make an immediate impact. When you show up, we just had a very, very exceptionally controversial student housing project approved in South Carolina. We are still fighting this, actually. A group of citizens is still fighting it. We filled city council offices for 2 meetings, overflowing into the parking lot to make a difference. Because local government is where you listen to the residents. And we want to listen, and we need to have diverse voices because we need to talk about things like affordable housing. If you think those who've always been in the room are going to talk about affordable housing, you're wrong. If you think they're going to talk about food insecurity among residents, you're wrong. We are able now, Clemson City Council, we have 3 women, only one African-American woman, Alicia Smith, but we are 3 voices. We want to be, well, we'd like to be 7, but we might settle for 4. And we want to change that. We're the ones, women and people of color in our communities are the ones having these difficult conversations. And so that's one of the things I want you to consider, these school district seats. Even in Oconee County and Pickens County and here, where you have attacks on our libraries. Libraries, who would attack a library? And you have attacks on the school districts and on the teachers. I'm the child of an English and Latin teacher at Walhalla High School. And the thought that my dad would be told what books he could cover, even though I didn't agree with all the stories we read, nobody told him what he could teach. So I just want to say one word, which is that serve. Find a way to serve and show up for your community. At the local level is really, truly where you make a difference. One last thing, I'll tell you the worst part. The worst part is that it takes you 3 years to learn your job. Planning and codes is the most boring thing I've ever done in my entire life, of knowing why buildings are commercial or mixed use or residential or multifamily. It takes you 3 years to learn that job. But you have to learn that part. In case you wonder about development when you drive through Greenwood, of what's where and why is that here, it's because of codes. But the best part of the job is seeing people who come in and learning what they've done. The people who have given to this community who you don't see on a regular basis. That's the best part. You see the kids who are 8 and under who won the local soccer championship. You see the person, you get to honor the person who has started and worked with Meals on Wheels for 35 years. So I just wanted to do that. I'm traveling around talking about this because we have so many seats, even nonpartisan seats, where our voices, Democrat voices, are going unheard. Oh, it doesn't matter who's on city council. It doesn't matter who's on county council. I assure you, you guys made my point. It does matter, because if you had more representation on that county council and on those city council seats, things would change. That's what we're seeing gradually, and that's what I hope you'll do. Thanks, guys. I'm always happy to wander to Greenwood. Always happy to come here. Sorry, questions?
Yeah, you don't get to run away after.
Sorry.
First question I would like to ask is, what does it mean to be a senior director of policy at a nationally known university like State University of Pennsylvania?
It's the best gig, but I'm very fortunate. I've spent my career in higher education. I am a South Carolina graduate, for the record. I'm a Gamecock. You can find me on Twitter at Clemson Gamecock, which gets people riled up just to begin with. But I have 2 degrees from Carolina. My doctorate is from Maryland, so I started my career at Maryland. I do have a master's degree in special education, and I used to tell people that trained me to work with faculty members. And politicians, maybe. And I have my doctorate from Maryland. I worked for the University of Maryland. I came back. I worked at Clemson for 13 years, so I don't wear orange. I will wear purple on occasion. Then I went to Purdue and worked for Purdue, and then came back here, and I actually did some work for Lander as a consultant. And then an old friend of mine said, I need you to come to Penn State. And I said, well, I can't move. I care for my 84-year-old father. And he said, I don't care where you live. I said, all right. So what I do is I tackle the big issues in higher education. So we're talking about cost. The average debt of a Penn State graduate, for my Pennsylvania friends, the average debt of a Penn State graduate is almost $29,000. South Carolina ranks 8th in student debt. We have a huge problem with costs and support for higher education, in case you didn't know that. I've gotten yelled at by Hugh Leatherman and others because I want to talk about affordability and access. I teach online sometimes, and we're facing some challenges in higher education, and so that will be coming down, but that's what I get to do. I deal with big issues. So enrollment cliffs that are coming and all that good stuff. Oh, the other thing I would say is if you are interested in running, please contact me. Bill knows how to find me anywhere. I'm happy to talk with you. Running for local office does not have to cost really anything, to be perfectly honest. But it does not cost a lot of money. It's not like what you guys are trying to do for State House even. It's knocking on a lot of doors and going to a lot of meetings like this and talking to people. So please reach out. I'm happy to help. Sure. Okay, so the big picture is you still fill out the South Carolina Ethics Commission conflict of interest 4 times a year. And that basically asks you the general questions that they're the Trump questions. How many members of your family are working for you? And do you work for any members of your family? And how much money do you get? And all that good stuff. But to file is actually very simple. And I did not at least have to turn over my tax information. I do not know how much of this varies by municipality. And nobody really has asked that question, which is probably good. You know, I lost a business during COVID, and so I actually had to file for bankruptcy, and nobody has really had to ask that question. But so you do get to keep. That's the advantage in a municipality. You get to keep some of your private life, which you guys don't get to keep. But that's because in a small town, everybody already knows your business. You don't have to tell them. So no, it is much simpler. It is much more low key. I didn't even start a campaign finance committee. No, I ran in 2020 in the middle of COVID. So we'll see what happens this year. But yeah, it's much simpler, much simpler. County council is getting a little more complicated, I think, because of some of the money coming in and some of the external donors. But city offices are still very, very reasonably priced. You don't have to invest your money, and people will hand you $50 or $20. And at a city level, that makes a big difference. Okay, any other questions? I'm sorry. I in a hurry to get off the stage. Okay, thank you. Thanks, guys.